साई राम। आज दोपहर को जो कुछ मैं आपको कहना चाहता हूँ मैं अंग्रेज़ी में दोहराऊँगा, इसलिए जो भगवान हमेशा मुझसे अंग्रेज़ी में ही चर्चा करते थे और दो तीन लफ्ज़ भगवान ने ज़रूर इस्तेमाल किए जब मुझसे बात कर रहे थे। एक तो सूरी कैसा है, सूरी कब आया, पर और जो दूसरी चीज़ें पे सब्जेक्ट पे भगवान हमेशा अंग्रेज़ी में ही मुझसे बात करते थे। तो इसलिए मैं आपसे माफ़ी मांगता हूँ, पर मैं जो कुछ कहना चाहता हूँ आज उसको मैं अंग्रेज़ी में ही दोहराऊँगा। You know, I was a very religious man right from childhood, and actually I attribute it to my grandmother. She was quite rabid when it came to religion. Being a Kshatriya, I did believe that I was much more than that, and I thought I was a Brahmin because I used to wear a janoi, I grew a choti, and then I wouldn't allow people to enter my kitchen. But as I grew up in childhood, I realized that that was one form of following religion, because my grandmother, for instance, everything she prayed, whether she did the Mrityunjay mantra or she did the Gayatri mantra, it was to Krishna Bhagwan. So Krishna Bhagwan was the only deity that was known. I think in this context, with my exposure with Bhagwan Shri Sathya Sai Baba, he who told me million times over, Suri, pick up one name and worship that name. पर वो मैं नहीं कर सकता हूँ, because all gods are the same, all names are the same. In our case, in Sanatana Dharma, for instance, our Shastra Nama, we give this to Lakshmi Shastra Nama, we give this to Ganesh, we give this to Hanuman, we give this to Shiv Bhagwan, and etc. Krishna Bhagwan, anyone you name it, and there is a Shastra Nama, 1001 names. So I have been still reconciled on this, and my puja room, which I call a temple, is basically flooded with different forms of devas, devis, Bhagwan, whatever you wish to refer to them as. I pray to all of them individually also. And to that extent, I am not able to follow the dictum given to me by Bhagwan Sai Baba. I cannot do it. For instance, I turn around and say, Namo Namah Bhagwan Sathya Sai Baba Sharanam Dhyam Namah. Then I come around and say the same thing for Krishna, same thing for Shiv Bhagwan, same thing for Vishnu Bhagwan. And I do believe that I am going back to that one and only form, which is nameless and formless, whatever he is. And we as human beings have given this a form and a name to the deities. And this went on through my childhood, but all the time, my grandmother, who had presented me with an ivory Krishna, I used to carry it in my pocket. And to that extent, whatever I did, I prayed to Krishna Bhagwan. But never did I have the maturity to say that Krishna Bhagwan, I attribute this to you. Therefore, mine was a very half-baked religious more of which is out of a force of habit and understanding that God would always be there. But that is what I knew, that no matter what happened, Krishna Bhagwan would protect me. Now, I had no proof for that, but that was my conviction, not just my faith. That is how it started in life. And I went through this. I lost my father at a relatively young age. I was 11 years old. After that, there was a partition. But then I went to the Prince of Wales Royal Indian Military College, which is in Dehradun. And from there to the first course of the Joint Services wing. And I would say that I was a mediocre kind of a student, an average person. But then, when I joined the Air Force, incidentally, I must punctuate myself here, I was a naval cadet, and from the Navy I changed on to the Air Force. And the day I set my foot at the Air Force Academy on 6th January 1950, I was a transformed man, and I found that that somebody was pushing me, and things just went. I never looked back. Now, if you ask me, if you have never looked back, was this your ability? My answer is a big no. There was something someone was doing for me. Because I have evidence of this. That is very unusual, where you have so many people who dislike you, yet they are not able to harm. God ensured that I headed the service that I joined, that is the Indian Air Force, and I was chief of the Indian Air Force. During my life of about 42 years in the Air Force, I had flown a considerable number of aircraft. It was a passion with me to fly aircraft, just like the people from the Philatelic Society who collect stamps. They just want to. So in this bargain, I flew about 86 types, but never had an accident. I fought 3 wars, never a bullet touched me. How did this happen? When I was in the service, I did, like a monkey, think that maybe it was that I was a good chap. But then later on, the sense dawned on me that I had nothing to do with this. And this has evidence in it. I was in Tamram in the instructor's course, where the highest category is A1. And I appeared for that A1 test. And all the time I was doing my aerobatics and other maneuvers where I was being tested, facing in a particular direction. It's many years later that I realized that the aircraft, every maneuver that I did was facing Puttaparthi. Today, I realize how immature I was to think that we as human beings are the ones who are committing a deed. We are not. We are like toys in the hands of Bhagwan. He is giving you opportunities. He makes you behave in a manner. He gives you temptations. And thereafter, as Bhagwan Sai Baba has often said, that your Guru and your Bhagwan is your karma. He said, I'm only a witness. I'm just watching what you're doing. I'll shower you all the love. But what you get out of it is what you perform. So as you sow, so shall you reap, is the answer to the whole issue. Having known Bhagwan from 1971 till 2010, I spent my first 20 years telling Bhagwan half-truths without realizing who he was. And Bhagwan never corrected me to say that, look, you're telling me a lie or you're not telling me the full truth. He just patted me on the back, because there is a time when Bhagwan will promote you into that degree where you will experience. And it is in this context that nobody has a right over here to turn around and say that, look, Sathya Sai Baba was Bhagwan. Who are we to judge him? He's the person who judges us. And Bhagwan Sathya Sai Baba told me very clearly, and I use the word Bhagwan because I always referred to him as the ultimate, the Bhagwan, because that was my experience of him. And he told me that, Surya, time will come when I will give you what is the answer. And that is the control of my mind, the control of my actions. You know, I do feel very sorry that I wasted so many years before I really got to know who Swami was. Actually, I was a Krishna worshipper. I had never heard of Shirdi Baba or Sathya Sai Baba. Well, in passing, Shirdi Baba definitely, but Bhagwan Sai Baba I hadn't heard of. It's only when I came back from Iraq that one of my wife's relatives said that Sai Baba was coming and staying in the house in Delhi with Sonlal, and they had been invited and we must go. So obviously this was a message from Swami. We went there, and my wife and my 4 kids, they sat in the front row. I also sat in the front row. And Sai Baba came, he looked at my wife, blessed her, looked at my children, blessed them. And Sai Baba just passed me with a glance, and that's all. And I felt rather odd because I was a very religious-minded person, but this is what had happened. I remember having got back home, and then there were lots and lots of things coming to me belonging to Sai Baba, his photographs, some books, some postcards with Sai Baba's photographs, etc. Then I had a dream of Sai Baba, which materialized into almost a miracle. So I said, I must go and get blessings from such a honorable soul. Mark the word honorable soul. And that's what happened. That's when he called me. I went there. I was treated with great kind of dignity and put into an accommodation which was befitting someone who needed to be given grace or something. And like this, Swami built up. But every time I went to Bhagwan, there was miracles happening at night. My body would be flying around. I would be traversing over areas that I hadn't seen. Then I would see Sai Baba converted into Krishna and sort of have his something like 18 feet, and I keep putting my head up and up and up and twisting my neck, but I couldn't twist beyond that, and that's the kind of height he was. And I didn't know what was happening, and I didn't know how these things were happening to me. But every time I put him to test, for instance. I said to myself on one occasion, I said, Bhagwan, you have called me for this prasadam. We are all eating here, but unless you bless the plate I'm eating, I will not eat. And I didn't eat. Then I got into the taxi, and when we were returning from Puttaparthi, I opened the briefcase, and right on top was Vibhuti. It wasn't the Vibhuti packet. It was what followed my heartfelt, the kind of passion and love that I had never experienced before. And many tests, I remember when I even took my son, my twin son, and my twin son sitting outside said that if you are God, you give me a watch that my father is wearing. Something like that. So he went inside. We were called for interview. My son's name was Arvind. And he said, and he gave him a watch. Then we went outside. One day we were given 6 interviews, my son and I. He said, my father is wearing a ring. You give me that ring. Then I'll believe you are God. So he gave him my ring. Like this, he's doing, he's playing around. But it won't go into my son's nut that here, what he's telling you, this is the thing. I remember there's another lady, I don't want to mention her name. Sai Baba put the ring on this finger, and she was wearing it like this over here. So I told her, at the Shanti Bhavan, I said, Sai Baba put this ring in which finger? She said this. So I said, then I think you should wear it there. It's always much better. And we were called for an interview, and this lady also called inside. And he said, yes, her name, and he said that, that ring I gave you? Yes. Which finger did I put? And she said, this one. Now you were wearing on this. She said that Swami has got very tight over there. So he says, always good to put it in the same finger that I gave you. So he repeated the conversation that was happening. This made me believe that whatever I'm saying in that forum is being monitored by Swami. You have so many thoughts coming in your mind because according to the Bhagavad Gita, you have to perform karma. And karma, whether you say you're going to perform or you're not perform, the fact of the matter is that automatically is performed. Every thought, every action, every kind of a change in mood takes it to your karmas. So basically, one has to understand that you, no matter how great a saint you may be, what you understand of Bhagwan is only an iota, because that is one power which cannot be recognized by anyone other than the person who has achieved that position of being the ultimate in this world. I was invited when I was chief of the Air Force to the summer course and to be the chief guest. Now, to go to a place where Sai Baba is God and to speak on theology, and more so with the emphasis on spirituality, I could not conceive what I would say because my knowledge was absolutely limited and I didn't know what to do. So I wrote out my talk and I went there, and every day I would pray to Krishna Bhagwan that please make me speak something sensible. And that was it. So then when I went there, I found that I was taken to Bhagwan. Bhagwan came, stood next to me and asked me to get into the car. So I said, Bhagwan, aap baithe. He said, no, you sit. Then I wanted to sit on the floor. By this time my faith, it's developed so much. He said, no, sit on top. So we sat side by side. And then same thing happened when we reached the hall. And I tried to follow Swami. He was calling me forward, but I kept a few steps behind him. In the meantime, the students had come in. So Swami had already crossed. And I stood by there. After the students left, I went and joined Swami. And then we sat down together on the podium. There Swami tried to sort of encourage me by talking to me. I think he's giving ideas that I should put into my head. And I did try to understand some things that Swami said, but I didn't have the bent of mind to understand what is this implications of this kind of enunciations. So, cutting a long story short, I spoke 20 minutes. I came back, sat down, and Bhagwan looked at me, smiled, and said, about 2 weeks later, I was sent a cassette. And I played that cassette, and I was wondering who this fellow speaking. Because those words and that thought process was not mine. It took me a long time after discussing with people who were more knowledgeable, and especially with the Vice Chancellor there. I asked him, I said, how was I called? He said, you asked Swami, I don't know how you were called. Then he's saying that he didn't know why Swami is called. But cutting a long story short, what was said made sense to me, and those were not my words. And that is what was recorded. So that is why I was saying that Bhagwan, he got this infinite capacity to give you love. I'm sure when I'm talking to you today, wherever I'm making a monkey out of myself, he's correcting it. And you will only hear what he wants you to hear and not what I am articulating. You see, vice chief and chiefs, we generally used to stay at, not generally, stay on Akbar Road. I remember one morning, when I came out of the house, suddenly I saw a number of peacocks on my garden. And I was a superstitious person, and peacock is always the significance of something good happening to you. And this happened for 2 or 3 days consecutive. Until such time the announcement came of the impossible, because I thought I was retiring, to say that I was now nominated as the chief of the Air Force. Of course, needless to say, I went back to Swami, he blessed me. Swami didn't say even once that I made you chief, or to say that you ignorant chap. There's nothing that you have done, it's only me who's made you what you are. So now follow a path which will bring you good fortune rather than being a member of the worldly life. And like all other people, I used to enjoy my drinks, sometimes a bit too much. I enjoy smoking. Life was more on the materialistic aspect. Life was on enjoyment. Life was not to say that what did Bhagwan teach us? He taught us that to be spiritual is not an esoteric pursuit. It is just being a normal human being, sharing love, laughing with others, creating joy amongst others, and you become spiritual. So you don't have to go and sit under a tree with a stick or something else over there trying to meditate when you can't meditate. Spirituality is living a good life of a human being. Because in the ultimate analysis, you were born spiritual and you must go from this world as spiritual. There was a target allotted to me. I was commanding a squadron at that time. And that target was very lucrative, very interesting target, and so the criminal element within you comes in. Suddenly my number 2 gave call, bogey. So what was the option? I thought of Krishna, and that was Sai Baba. Suddenly I found I could see the blade of grass, how clear it was, and I was that low. It was not me flying the machine, it was some other force.